This is perfect for the Toronto Blue Jays as a recent report has dropped revealing a very surprising Jays target that would change the outlook of this offseason. We'll break down that report and discuss what it can mean going forward as the Jays are entering one of the most important offseasons in recent memory. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're part of the 70% who aren't subscribed, it would mean the world to myself if you could hit that subscribe button, as we're on the road now to 14,000 subscribers. But of course, the playoffs are underway. There's a lot of fun, exciting things happening. And for us Jays fans, we can kind of just watch from the outside looking in and enjoy the baseball. But for the Toronto Blue Jays, they have a ton of work to do. And Ross Atkins, hopefully, is very busy right now figuring out their plan and strategizing for this offseason, because this is the last offseason before Vladdy and Bo are free agents. And it's going to be a very telling one as they enter next year, where they are hoping to compete for a playoff spot. But a recent article dropped, and it's very interesting. Obviously, we know the biggest issue for the Toronto Blue Jays is their bullpen, alongside, of course, their offense. We're refocusing on the bullpen today because last season, entering the year and thinking back to 2023, the year before last year, their bullpen was one of the best in baseball. It was looked at as a very strong point heading into the 2024 season last year. And then a handful of injuries, guys like Jordan Romano, Jimmy Garcia was out for a bit. Eric Swanson had an unfortunate start to his summer with the horrible accident with his kid. Ultimately, what happened was the Jays got put in a very rough spot, and their bullpen was lackluster to start the year. We figured, hey, once everybody comes back, it'll be okay. Half the players came back. The other ones who didn't come back, obviously they were out. And the ones who did come back were not very good, and it turned into be one of the worst bullpens, if not, I think by advanced analytics and even normal analytics and the stats, the worst bullpen in baseball. So that's going to be one of the biggest factors for them heading into next year. And a recent report has dropped, and some very interesting things here. So we're going to start with this, and this is about a Milwaukee Brewers reliever. So just yesterday, the GM of the Milwaukee Brewers said they're open-minded on the possibility of trading Devin Williams. Now, we obviously know Devin Williams is the one who gave up the runs that got the Brewers eliminated from the playoffs. But you see here, Brewers general manager Matt Arnold held a press conference today on the heels of the club being eliminated from the playoffs last week. Arguably, the most notable thing he said was in relation to closer Devin Williams. We have to stay open-minded. We're the smallest market in the league, so that's something that's required in this. He is 30, slated to reach free agency 1 year from now. Due to the financial limitations that Arnold referenced, many Milwaukee players have found themselves in trade rumors as they have neared free agency. A player will generally see a salary increase, of course, the club control narrows, and the Brewers have often preferred to trade such players rather than holding them all the way to free agency. We saw the exact thing happen with the Brewers and Josh Hader when he was shipped off, and then, of course, Devin Williams was took over, and he's one of the best relievers in baseball. But now, because they're a small market team, they cannot afford to keep and pay Devin Williams. And after next season, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, meaning he's going to get a massive contract. We know that Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $90 million deal with the Houston Astros. And now, essentially, that's a huge contract. Now, Devin Williams will probably get something similar. He has similar numbers. He's not quite as electric. He is not a lefty, he's a righty, which is a bit less valuable. But when you're looking at it from the Brewers' perspective, they're open to trading their closer and their best reliever in Devin Williams. And what that means now is the Jays, and I'll show you the report here in the article in a minute, the Jays could come knocking on the door of the Milwaukee Brewers for this. And the reason is, getting a guy like Devin Williams would obviously be huge for them. And again, this is not a player who has been inconsistent. He has been one of the best relievers in baseball over the handful of seasons, sub-2 ERA each of the past few years here. And quite frankly, he is very good. And again, like I mentioned, Josh Hader, who was the closer in Milwaukee, was flipped to the Padres at the 2022 deadline. They traded Corbin Burns, so it's not unlikely that they trade for Devin Williams. And you even think back to Willy Adames. Not every player will be traded. Adames was in plenty of rumors, and now he stayed for his final season of club control. Now, hopefully the Jays can go for a guy like Willy Adames in free agency. But when we're looking at Devin Williams here, you can see an article drop saying the Brewers are stated that they are open-minded to moving an all-star reliever that would be a great fit in Toronto. So they held the end of the year press conference, and they said they're open to trading pitcher Devin Williams. And again, being open-minded because they're the smallest market in the league, it holds a bit more value and credence here because they did the exact same thing with Josh Hader a couple years ago in 2022. They shipped him off right before he was about to hit free agency, or nearing free agency, because they didn't want to pay near free agency because they didn't want to pay Josh Hader the ton of money that he's going to get. And that is the exact same situation now with the Milwaukee Brewers and Devin Williams. And ultimately, if the Jays can offer them a pretty decent package, I would be fairly open to it. But with all that being said, the biggest question mark here is A, what the Jays are willing to offer, and B, are they willing to give a guy like Devin Williams and the Milwaukee Brewers a ton of assets for a reliever that at this point is on an expiring contract? And I think any trade involving Devin Williams would have to involve an extension as well. Because you're not going to trade top prospects for a guy in the last year of his deal without being fairly confident that you can extend him, simply because at this point, Well, relievers are also very volatile, and Devin Williams is probably one of the least volatile relievers in baseball. He hasn't been great in the postseason, specifically this year and last year as well. But I mean, when you're coming and looking at his stats in the regular season, they are very good. You see here, the Jays would be a great spot for a great landing spot, sorry, for Williams, as he would be exactly what they are looking for when it comes to improving their bullpen for next season, and would definitely have the money to offer him an extension as well. Despite Russ Atkins stating that he wants to stay around the same payroll, the opportunities are there to go land an all-star caliber player. It would be foolish to turn him down. And we've seen rumors start to intensify and escalate regarding Juan Soto, regarding a lot of the high-end guys. So if they're going to go all in and they go for a guy like Juan Soto, they have to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That payroll is going to increase, and is going to increase very, very fast. But what that means for the Toronto Blue Jays is that maybe they'll be more likely to extend a guy like Vladdy. And if they bring in a guy like Devin Williams, show that they're serious about competing, it could make things easier for the rest of the players who are looking to either come to Toronto or remain in Toronto in the form of an extension with Vladdy. And the biggest question mark, again, here is, do they want to give up all these assets for a reliever? Because the offense is a big problem. And if you have to choose between trading for a hitter who's a very solid, offensive juggernaut, think of guys like, I mean, not necessarily trade, but even just acquire. So guys signing like Teoscar Hernandez, signing Pete Alonso, signing Juan Soto, Alex Bregman, any of those guys, that would probably be a better use of your money than a guy like Devin Williams, who you also have to extend. But that being said, there's not many elite relievers in this league that you can trade for and that become available for acquisition, simply because Devin Williams and all the other elite relievers at this point of their careers, teams keep them because that's what wins you postseason games. We've seen it with tons of teams. We can see how it can hurt the Toronto Blue Jays in an effort to actually make the postseason. And we're seeing it with the Cleveland Guardians. The whole year they had the best bullpen in baseball, and now they also have a very good bullpen. I don't think they're going to go super far in the playoffs, but it's not really working for them in the playoffs fully. But at the end of the day, having a great bullpen is what's going to help win you games in the postseason and in the regular season as well, because we're talking about the postseason here. The Jays need to get back to actually making the postseason, winning the division, and make efforts towards winning the division, because they haven't even won the division in a very long time. You look at his stats last season, 22 games, he was undefeated, 21 innings pitched with an ERA of 1.25. He obviously was hurt a little bit of this year, so he only played 22 games, but you look at the year before and the year before, 60-plus games, he had an unbelievable ERA, sub 2. His whip under 1, like his ERA plus was 341, which is 241% better than league average. And the reason for that is because, of course, the limited amount of games, but he also the best reliever, or one of the best relievers in baseball, of course, alongside Emmanuel Clase and a couple of other guys. But at the end of the day, it'll be very interesting to see if they actually pull the trigger for a reliever. They need to upgrade their bullpen significantly, but making a trade for relievers that tend to be historically volatile is something that's very concerning. And it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on this. What is the most you would give up for a reliever like Devin Williams? He would turn around the bullpen and will be a step in the right direction. But let me know, do you think Ross Atkins should do it? We'll see you tomorrow.